Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the Ward 3 Candidate Forum tonight. My name is Lynn Tungett. I'm the owner and editor of Newport This Week, and I'd like to welcome our viewers to the forum. You'll be hearing from 3 Ward 3 candidates who are having September 8th primary races, where you will vote for one of the 3 candidates and 2 will appear on the November ballot. In the at-large race, there was actually 12 candidates in the primary and 8 are going to be moving on. So it's great to see so many people participating in the process. This forum is a collaboration between the Alliance for Livable Newport, East Bay TV, Greater Newport Chamber of Commerce, League of Women Voters, Newport Buzz, Newport This Week, and WADK. The purpose of the collaboration is to inform Newport County voters. I'd like to point out that the positions held by any one of the collaborators do not represent the opinions or viewpoints of the others in the group. It is also important to note that the Alliance for Livable Newport, the League of Women Voters, and Newport This Week are nonpartisan and do not endorse candidates. The forum can be viewed through the links to the collaborators' websites and social media, on public access television, and for listening on WADK. Candidates are invited to follow up with WADK or Channel 17 to expand on their views and answers here tonight. Tonight's questions have been a combined effort from Newport Buzz, Alliance for Livable Newport, the Chamber of Commerce, and other members of the collaboration. Again, thank you to the candidates for participating. We encourage viewers to watch for other upcoming forums on both the primary and general election. And at this time, I'd like to introduce the moderator for tonight, Christian Winthrop. He runs Newport Buzz, which has the largest online audience in Southern Rhode Island. Christian, all yours. Over to you.
Great. Thank you, Lynn. And I really want to thank Lynn and Newport This Week for quarterbacking this effort to get this all together. I think it's really important for the voters of Newport and specifically tonight for the 3rd Ward. So for everyone watching tonight, here's what we're going to do. This will probably be 45 minutes, maybe an hour. It's going to consist of 4 parts. The candidates will start with 90-second opening statements, of which the names were drawn just before we went live, and everything will rotate through that way. We're going to have 6 questions that we're going to ask the candidates to expound upon. We're going to ask them to keep it to 60 seconds. And Susan and Roger Wells from the League of Women Voters will be keeping time. When we see at 15 seconds, a yellow card will go up. At 60 seconds, a red. That's kind of the end of your answer. We'll have a few yes or no questions after the 60-second question round, where we'll ask you to raise your hand if you are in the affirmative, if you agree with the statement or you're going to vote yes. And then the forum ends with 90-second closing statements. So it's pretty simple. So by luck of the draw, well, actually, let me introduce the candidates. Tonight we have Ward 3, Council incumbent Kate Leonard, and her challengers, Paul Marshall and Rachel Huss. Rachel won the draw, and she gets to start with her 90-second opening statement. Go ahead, Rachel.
Thank you, everybody. I have to piggyback on that. Thank you as well. It's just so exciting to be here and have something like this hosted for us. But I wanted to start by saying that Ward 3 is large, it's diverse, and it's integral to our city. And I am excited to say I'm running for City Council so that Ward 3's creative solutions to age-old problems can be represented. An Islander through and through, I grew up in Portsmouth and attended St. Michael's here in Newport. I then became a commuter to Wheeler for high school, but graduated to an even longer commute to the American University of Paris, where I earned my BA in International Communications in 2010. Since then, I've owned my own business. I've been a freelance film editor. I've grown in supervisory roles, and I've hosted countless ghost tours. And I have been fortunate enough to do all of that right here in Newport.
Great. Second would be Paul.
Thank you. I also want to say hi to Kate, hi to Rachel, Christian. It's great to see everybody remotely. As it was stated, my name is Paul Marshall. I'm a local Newporter. I was born and raised here. I graduated from Rogers High School. I had a career in marketing and communications that brought me from New York City to Salt Lake City and back. I moved back here in 2018 to obtain my master's in public policy from Brown University. I currently run a small consulting firm that works with outdoor brands on global carbon reduction strategies, environmental and sustainability policy, and marketing and communications. I've also sat on Newport's planning board for the last year and a half as the resiliency liaison. I have actively participated in the North End Urban Master Plan, Transportation Master Plan, Green and Complete Streets Initiative, and our CCA RFP proposal. These are just to name a few. Lastly, I'd like to note that I'm currently raising my son, Forrest, here. He's 16 months old yesterday, and I hope he will come to have the same passion and love for this city as I do. I'm running for him and for the future of Newport. So if elected, I hope to ensure that Newport continues to grow in a conscientious, equitable, and sustainable way. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Kate, you're up.
Unmute me. Okay. I've lived in Connecticut, Alabama, and traveled to many places. I've owned houses in other places, but Newport is home. I've chosen to live here and I bought my first house here in 1978 when I was 21 years old. I work and I'm part of the community and I'm an action person. I'm known for doing things. I had considered not running again as I've been on the council almost 20 years, but so many people called me to encourage me to stay at it because they know I'm an advocate for the board. I respond to all the constituents 24/7, and people know that I don't sleep many hours. My phone rings often until midnight, and often the calls start at 7 a.m. I encourage people to communicate with me because it gives me a pulse on this community. My calls come from all wards, and I consider myself to owe the answers and explanations to all who contact me. People can go to my website, they can text me, they can email me, and they can call me. But I'm running because I feel that I speak the truth. People know I tell it like it is. They might not always like it, but at the same time, I feel that I owe it to the constituents to make my peace.
Thank you, Kate. All right, so question one, we're going to start with Rachel, then we'll flip to Paul, and then we'll go to Kate. So here we go. Question one. What is your development? What is your vision for the development of the north end of Newport? And specifically, do you support the $100 million anchor development project proposed for the former Newport Grand property?
That's certainly a nice broad question. Thank you so much. I was able to tune in recently to the online meeting they had regarding following up on what the residents of Newport, their input to the NEUP, things that they wanted to see. I was really happy with what I saw, that they were addressing things that I had even mentioned when I took their survey. And so I think they're on the right path. You had a two-part question there. What would I like to see and if I would approve it? I would really like to see some affordable housing over there, as well as a little bit more business, maybe small businesses as well. I even proposed in my What's Up Noop interview that maybe a public pool down there would be nice. I want a lot of green space, lots of places to walk, and I want to be able to get from one ward to the other to get there. Ultimately, at this point, I would support it, but I'd like to know a lot more about it before I put a final answer there.
Thank you. Now on to Paul Marshall.
Oh, excuse me.
Can we Okay, perfect.
Yep.
Great question. First, as we look towards the future, I hope to steer citywide decisions through an equity and inclusion lens. Newport has struggled with equity throughout its history. As a city, it is our duty to consult with our community and to ensure we fully understand the impact of our municipal decisions. This is true for the Carpionato project. As a member of the Newport City Planning Board, I've committed to this effort by advocating for the community benefit agreement in the new development project, as well as having helped begin a process to set long-term equitable goals in the city's comprehensive land use plan. If elected, it would be a priority to make sure that we allocate necessary support and budget to completing beneficial community projects recommended in the North End Urban Master Plan. Newport deserves a city that reflects their needs, and I will continue to help Newport to make necessary strides towards a more equitable and inclusive future. Now, to answer the question further, where I would like to see is this as an increased accessibility and an equitable decision for all.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Councilor Leonard? Can you please unmute yourself?
Can you ask the question one more time, please?
So what is your vision for the development of the north end of Newport? And
Okay.
specifically, do you support the $100 million anchor development project proposed by at the former Newport Grand property?
Okay. For the north end, I think the most important aspect of it is to have a more inclusive community that brings benefits to all the residents. And we hear the term One Newport all the time. I'd like to see that. I'd like to see a good working trolley system. I'd like to see a transportation system so that people can move quickly to get to work. Newport Heights has won national awards, so I'm happy about that. I think we can make further improvements with easier access to healthcare, maybe have a healthcare clinic in the north end. I think we need to have a balance. I don't want to see 90-foot high buildings, which is what the Carpionato group had first brought to us. I think we can improve on that, and that we can work together to get there. I think the bridge alignment for the, oh, go ahead.
So that's 60 seconds, sorry.
Sorry, that's all.
All right, so we're on to question 2. We're going to start with Paul. We'll go to Kate, then to Rachel. So the recent development of 2 new hotels in Newport has created a divide in our city, with vocal proponents and opponents of new development in Newport. Do you favor tightening ordinance restrictions for developing waterfront hotels, or do you favor a free market approach?
Christian, I'm going to ask that you repeat that. I didn't get any.
Yeah, you seem to be. Yeah, that's okay. Tech issue. Can you hear me well now, Paul?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Right. So
I'm repeating it.
It's not at all. The recent development of 2 new hotels in Newport has created a divide in our city, with vocal proponents and opponents to new development in Newport. Do you favor tightening ordinance restrictions for developing waterfront hotels, or do you favor a free market approach?
I'm gonna say that I only got part of that, so I'll try to answer the best I can with what I heard. I think if we do mind we can start now, I guess. In regard to development in our waterfront properties, I think that what we needed to do before addressing it is make sure that we're preserving public access to the waterfront. Are we hearing me? Are we okay?
We can hear you.
Okay, great. Public access is necessary and should be preserved. Our neighborhoods and our circle districts should be preserved, and we should be addressing any form of development on the waterfront with the climate resiliency method. Over 60% of our economy sits on a flood zone in downtown, and it needs to be addressed. In terms of overgrowth. I think we're reaching that point. I do not agree that we need to add more hotels without more market analysis. And I do think that we need to help preserve this community for what it is and help benefit our residents that live here full time around.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Kate? Can you unmute yourself, Kate, please? Still not.
Mute me.
There we
Yeah,
go.
okay. Thanks. I think this has to be answered carefully because we have zoning ordinances in place and we have a comprehensive land use plan in place. And if we try to change how we deal with development of hotels, if we don't change the zoning ordinances first, then we're in for big lawsuits. I think that it's important that the zoning aspects be looked at after so many comments and so many disgruntled people who live here. I think height restrictions need to be relooked at. I think we have to realize that tourism is our present day market, but at the same time, we don't want to spoil the character of Newport. I think public access and many communities that have hotels or businesses on the waterfront, in terms of zoning, they make trade-offs when they go to zoning to make sure that there's public access.
Great. Thank you, Kate. Rachel?
Would you mind repeating the question once more for me, please?
Sure. The recent development, also it's in the gallery view if you see.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you. Yes, there it is.
Recent development of 2 new hotels in Newport has created a divide in our city with local proponents and opponents to new development in Newport. Do you favor tightening ordinance restrictions for developing waterfront hotels, or do you favor a free market approach?
So if you ask me, running into me on the street, I'm usually a free market proponent. Having lived here and having spoken to a lot of people in this ward, just door knocking, a lot of people are not happy with what happened, whether it runs from the height, taking over the public access or minimizing it, to the alcohol permits. We've had a lot of opposition, at least from what I heard in my ward. So I would be open to looking at different kinds of ordinance restrictions we might be able to place on that in the future, since we just got 2 new ones. So I don't know if we need new ones anytime soon.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. So question 3, and we'll start with Kate on this one. Do you believe that climate change presents a danger to the future of Newport? If so, what specific measures would you enact to mitigate the risk to our citizens, property owners, and business owners?
Am I unmuted? Okay. All one has to do in Newport is drive down Wellington Avenue or streets on the point like the Marsh and Bridge and the area called the Swamp, and immediately you see when there's a big rainstorm that in fact we have a problem. Some of the things we've done to mitigate are to finally fix the inoperable pumping station on Wellington Avenue that cost about $6 million. That was one of the things we've done. We completed a city program enforcing the disconnecting of gutters into storm drains. We've identified lack of sewer line. I personally did that at King Park where water was going into the harbor. The city worked with Save the Bay and the feds to take care of the algae blooms and bring Gooseneck Cove back. We installed time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Rachel, please.
Sure. So absolutely, climate change is a huge issue here. As Kate pointed out, a lot of flooding issues. We are supposed to have an expected rise of about 3 feet in the next 50 years for sea level, so that's a little scary. But other things that we have to worry about here beyond flooding are the global warming type of things, right? Things with trash, recycling, emissions. And I think we really need to be aware of that as well, because along with the flooding in the streets comes all that debris that's overflowing from the trash We definitely need to have more trash around. We need to have more recycling facilities. Any apartment building with more than 10 dwellings doesn't mandate it. Same with a lot of restaurants. I think we need to enhance the communal gardens that we have going on, which will enhance composting. We can even have an urban orchard to create more green space. And finally, I think we need to have more of those electric car charging stations, probably some more bike parking stations, and enhancing our public transportation will absolutely help with combating emissions and things like that, which all lends to the global warming and climate change.
Thank you, Rachel. Paul?
Thank you. I'm excited that this question's up for debate because this is something that I do on a professional level. This is the type of work I do in terms of climate resiliency and have been doing on the planning board. A couple things to note real quick is that if we were going to address climate change and the pressures it provides for our city, we really need to invest in infrastructure. We also need to invest in our stormwater management and provide variances for stormwater treatment to be a top priority with development. Second thing is, another thing we need to address is transportation. Transportation is key. I'm part of the Green and Complete Streets initiative, which really does help in kind of mitigating those types of things. And lastly, I urge our city to be a leader on climate change resiliency. And if doing so, you'll attract new businesses. And that falls in line with the energy through a CCA program and other types of initiatives. So, yes.
Great. Thank you, Paul. All right, question 4, and we're back to Rachel. What alternatives should be explored beyond property taxes to enhance revenues in support of the city of Newport?
Well, it's all related, isn't it? If we can get more families to move here because we've worked on our schooling issues, what's digital learning, what is school in general, will we have a new school here? By drawing families, we can then also draw businesses, more small businesses, artisans, local people, minorities, things like that. Building businesses here in Newport would certainly lend to more revenue in general. I think there's also something to be said about how much we lend out to the state versus how much we keep here, and I think that's always up for debate and reallocating those funds. But I think we have an opportunity here to be innovative and really draw from either new industry, new population, or just new ideas in general. So I'm really excited to hear from my ward even what they might think would be best for them as well. I know we have a lot of people that pay a lot of property taxes around here.
Great. Thank you, Rachel. Paul?
Yes. To note, a lot of things when we attract new people, it directly ties to property tax. So if we're talking about initiatives that kind of support the city on the peripheral in terms of revenue making things, there's a couple ideas that I have. One is through currently working on a community choice aggregate, which is energy, buying RECs for energy, for clean energy. There's a concept where you can potentially further down the line due to certain policy shifts, you can probably gain revenue from making energy, and you can reinvest it into microgrids. So if we invested in renewable energy on site and had our own microgrids as a city, we'd be able to subset some of the costs on the city and produce revenue. And another thing is, for a community basis, to invest in broadband. And the last mile of broadband will really attract new businesses, and it's a great asset that our city could hang its hat on. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Paul. Kate?
One of the biggest things that I've looked at in terms of sources of revenue, and I've asked this for years, is imposing impact fees on new big developments like hotels, apartment buildings, which communities throughout the country do. If you're going to use the infrastructure, you should pay into it so that you can connect to all of this. I think that Newport has become the ATM machine of the state, where we get not enough of a share from the tourism taxes, and we need to work on that. We've looked at investigating and excuse me, and we formed committees that actually look at giving us input on how to increase it. And I agree that broadband would be a very big asset for bringing businesses and for the community.
Thank you, Kate. So question 5, we're going to start with Paul. The Black Lives Matter movement has swept our nation recently and is being felt in all corners of the country, including Newport. What would you do as a member of the Newport City Council to ensure a more fair, equitable, and just society in Newport? And as a follow-on, do you support defunding the police?
Okay, so yes, I wholeheartedly believe that implicit biasness and racial connotations are flooded our nation and have been for our entire history, and it is something that needs to be addressed. I do want to note that I am not the person to address those issues. I would rely on the community itself to provide feedback and hear from every individual. As we have a diverse community, I think that there's a lot of good public comments that could come to helping address these issues. One of the key things I think that could really help benefit the city is addressing our comprehensive land use plan in a more equitable and just lens. We're currently doing that process, or starting that process now, and I've been a part of that discussion. And I think that then moving forward, we'll be able to address any type of decision made in a more fair and equitable society. And then to answer your question about defunding the police, no, I do not think we should defund the police.
Thank you. Kate?
It's obvious, okay. It's obvious from the protests that we've seen and conversations that many people feel that there is inequity. I think as a member of the city council, that we need to have an open understanding of the needs of the people who are not pleased and feel that they haven't been treated equitably. And we have to keep the lines of communication open. I think that education is a part of it. The city council voted to add additional curriculum for the schools and asked the state to supporting the state legislature. And as a retired educator, I've talked also with Salve. I think that having an understanding of all people in the community for equality is really, really important. I think that unity is important and not divisiveness. And I don't support defunding the police because I think it brings anarchy.
Thank you, Kate. So question 6, right? Rachel, oh, no, Rachel, you didn't go. I'm sorry. I'm jumping ahead.
Quite all right. So to answer the question, there's absolutely racial disparity all over, and Newport is not exempt. If elected, I would absolutely back initiatives that can help minority businesses and families set up shop here and feel comfortable doing so. One main issue I've heard a lot is that there are not many mentors out there for minority entrepreneurs on how to start up a business, on how to be successful here and stay successful here in Newport. So I think it's really important to maybe set up a group to give visibility to minority-owned businesses that we have already, and then create a network within that to help mentor and foster that type of growth within the minority entrepreneurial and familial type of community. Also, with these types of resources, we can help the unemployment numbers of the minority communities go up. If we have minority business owners, we can help that community as well with the employment. It's almost double what the white unemployment is for young people here in Newport. And finally, I do not support defunding the police.
Great, thank you, Rachel. Question 6, we'll start with Kate. So Kate, if re-elected, what are your 3 top priorities for your next 2 years in office?
I'm sorry, I need to drink water. I have priorities, and I think that the 3 most important priorities need to deal with traffic, congestion, and how we handle that, because the quality of life has been impacted by that. I think that part of that is the influx of Airbnb. I think that's what's making people very unhappy. I think we need to deal with that. I think we need to deal with community cohesiveness so that we work proactively to have a united community and not a divisive community. And a big, big one I think we need to continue with is fiscal responsibility, keeping Newport affordable for working families and continue. I want to be the continued watchdog of money so families can stay here. I think that's the key to making Newport a good place, keeping families here and not part-time people.
Thank you.
All right, I'll drop it.
Rachel?
Sure. So 1, 2, 3, we've got schools, year-round economy, and the quality of life. Quickly, schools, we have to maximize this opportunity to have a solution to our school issue. That will lead into number 2, the year-round economy. It will draw families. It will draw people here who are here all the time, shopping, outfitting their homes, sending their kids to school. The kids are working. It's all working together. That's 1 and 2. 3, the quality of life. It depends pretty much on our, I think, eco-friendliness, the diversity, and our historic integrity. So as I mentioned before, we need to have more green space, more trash pickup, more less carbon emissions, more bike parking, spots for that. As far as diversity, as I mentioned just before in the last question, we have to also rethink our schooling. We have to absolutely keep that minority history in mind when we rethink learning. And finally, historic integrity, keeping the beautification of Newport within historic bounds and updating the placards that we have through the city to inform our residents.
Thank you, Rachel. Paul?
Since starting this campaign, I've hung my hat on 3 things: equity, environment, and education. I truthfully believe that going forward, if elected, I would make sure that every decision that was happening within the city council, within the city, was looked through a just and sustainable lens and approached through equitable solutions. Secondly, education is key. We need to invest in our schools. It's a net benefit and a net positive for our economy, for our city, and for our future. And lastly, environment. Environment is key. We're city by the sea, and we need to address the climate change specifically by building climate resiliency programs, as well as improving on our transportation and being a leader as a city. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Paul. All right, you guys can relax a little bit. The 60-second rounds are done. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go through, and this is going to be quick, kind of a lightning round. I'm going to ask you a series of yes or no questions. If you say yes, please raise your hand. Just leave it raised until I call your name, just so that we can record everybody. All right, we got it? We got it, good. Question 1, do you support a homestead tax exemption in Newport? Yes or no? So those are all no's. All right. Question 2, do you think the ward system should be discontinued and all candidates run at large? That's all 4 no's. All right. Regardless of the outcome of the impending school bond vote to build a new Rogers High School, would you support a study for high school regionalization on Aquidneck Island in the future? Kate, yes. Rachel, yes. And Paul, no. Question 4. Now, although it's located on state property and it's ultimately the state's decision, do you think the Columbus statue of Memorial Boulevard at Bellevue Avenue should be removed? And we've got all no's. All right, perfect. Hey, you guys did it. We're done. So I want to thank everybody here. Oh no, we got to do 90-second closing, right? Jeez. We got 90-second closings, and we're going to start with Paul.
I know we were told in the beginning of this to not say thank you, but I feel like it's an obligation to say thank you. So I do want to say thank you to Alliance for Livable Newport, League of Women Voters, WADK, Public Access TV, Newport this week, and of course you, Christian, for taking the time, and Newport Buzz for taking the time to moderate this this segment. It is a privilege and an honor to just be running for a place that I love and I have so much passion for. I hang my hat, as I said, on equity, education, environment, and economy, and that's something that I truly believe in, and something that I think that Newport moving forward could be done in a very equitable and just way. Just want to end with 2 words and let our viewers go from there, but think local. Thanks.
Thank you, Paul. Councilor Leonard? Your mute button, Kate.
First of all, I want to thank the people in this town who worked towards helping us and keeping us as a viable, wonderful community. I feel that Newport is attractive. I think we all need to work together. The communication is key. I think that we need to address a lot of issues. There's a lot more to come, a lot in place. We need to, I think, continue with the quality of life issues and the economics. And even though I don't feel well at all today, if people want any more information, they can always call me. They know I'm accessible 24/7. Thank you.
Thank you. And Rachel?
Well, thank you again. This has been a really fun and exciting opportunity to just create dialogue around Ward 3 and her issues. This has been a lot of fun, but ultimately I want to thank the viewers who tune in to this and want to educate themselves more on the options they have, and if they have more questions, I look forward to speaking with even more people whose doors I got to knock on already to see what they have to say, and if they have any creative, innovative solutions to either these new big issues we have or age-old problems that I think are probably pretty simple to solve. I ask a lot of questions, I confront a lot of things head on, and I look forward to doing the same for everyone in Ward 3 if possible.
Great, thank you guys. So that concludes our forum tonight. For everyone at home, please follow along with Newport Buzz, Newport This Week, and W80K, as we'll be putting, obviously you're watching this forum right now, but we're posting many other forums with other candidates from state reps, Middletown, Newport. We've got different wards at large. We've got a bunch of different stuff going on. But just please remember to vote on September 8th in the primary, and we'll see you guys back here for the general election. Best of luck, everybody.
Thank you.